You weren't little, you were in 8th grade. All grown up. All right. I'm really glad that I didn't get to see all of you because I saw some of my former cheerleaders and start to get a little choked up, and I refuse to cry. So I just can't explain how much it means to me that you guys are here tonight, that people still want to hear about Daniel 10 years later. It means a lot. Anyway, I want to start out by thanking Brian Marks and Megan Lee and the Modesto Junior College Student Learning and Campus Life Programs, who invited me to be here tonight to share my motivation for writing my book about Daniel. My husband Brian and I, Brian's here somewhere if he wants to take a quick hello, we've been married for almost 38 years, and we lived in Modesto for many, many, many years before relocating to Las Vegas 5 years ago. So we have 2 children. Daniel, our firstborn, was killed in Iraq 10 years and 6 days ago, and we have a daughter, Andrea. I'm not going to share too much about what's in the book because I want you to leave here with a desire to read it. And if you do not receive a copy of the book tonight, it is available on Amazon.com. The greatest compliment I've been given from several people who have read the book and did not know Daniel prior to reading the book is that they feel like after they read the book, they do know him, and that makes my heart incredibly happy. A lot has taken place between 2013, when the book was published, to as recently as January 1st of this year, at which time I received a really special message that I'm going to share with you a little later. And everything that has transpired over the last 10 years reminds us that although Daniel's physical presence is gone, his mighty spirit is alive and well and doing remarkable things still 10 years later. I'm getting a little more choked up than I want to, so bear with me. When Daniel died, I was working at Thomas Downey High School, the school I graduated from back in 1976, and the school that both of our children also graduated from. I returned to work 2 weeks after Daniel died, mostly because I needed some normalcy to return to my life, and I wanted to stay busy. One day when I was making copies in the copy room, Mrs. Pla, who was Daniel's sophomore English teacher, walked in and we started chatting. And she told me that she had been hearing greetings and messages from Daniel, and that very recently she heard him say very clearly, "Can you tell my mom she needs to write a book?" Well, okay. I mean, I'd never written anything much more substantial than a grocery list, but sure, a book? Sure, Daniel. So that was it. I started writing. During the long process, Miss Albert, another teacher at Downey, thought that I should incorporate in the book some thoughts and feelings from other people that knew Daniel and their emotions and just letters that we got after he died, and I thought that was a great idea, so I did. My older sister, Brenda, who's practically a genius in my mind, agreed to edit my book, and she was enormous help in my writing process. So as you read, you'll discover that Daniel was a pretty exceptional child. He was easy. He was a parent's, teacher's, and coach's dream. He was smart, athletic. He loved and excelled in leadership. And he taught martial arts when he was as little as 10 and 11 to adults. He always conversed really well with adults, and we always kind of said that he was like a little old man in a very young man's body. Eventually, he was accepted to West Point, which is the United States Military Academy for the Army. And each year, about 12,000 kids apply, and only 1,200 get in. So it might sound like everything came easily to Daniel, and that he didn't have to work at much, but that really is not the case. Daniel was average at most everything, but he worked really hard and studied really hard to rise above average, to come to the top, to become, as his friends witnessed, golden. At a very young age, it became important to Daniel to figure things out first so he could help others figure the same things out. I was always most proud of Daniel's character and his drive. He was humble. And when he wanted or needed to accomplish something, he just wouldn't stop until he got there. He may be still one of the most motivated individuals I've ever known. Turns out he faced one of his greatest challenges as a 23-year-old in Ranger School. Since he had branched infantry, Daniel needed to attend Ranger School. It's not required, however, it is expected of infantry officers. So in early January of 2008, Daniel began his long journey. I described the process in general terms in the book, but when reviewing the book recently, I did notice that it's misprinted in the book. It says 51 days to complete Ranger School, but it's actually 62 days, and that's if you pass straight through. So there are 3 phases, 20 days each, with 1 day in between, 62 days. And again, that's if you pass straight through. But if you get to a phase and you are asked to redo it or recycle, then you have to start that phase over from the beginning. I realized when I wanted to explain Daniel's experience in Ranger School that I really didn't know Daniel's experience or thoughts or emotions about Ranger School. After he graduated from Ranger School, time passed really quickly. He was deployed 5 months after that time and killed 5 months into his first deployment. So I never really got the chance to sit down and ask Daniel his thoughts or feelings or emotions about Ranger School. And just thinking that I didn't know what exactly he'd gone through made me more curious about the whole process. So I decided to ask 2 of Daniel's friends to share their insight on Ranger School. Nick is the officer who took over for Daniel after he was killed. He's a man that I adore. And these are the things that Nick told me he took away from his Ranger School experience. Number 1, excessive, probably unrealistic confidence. When you graduate from Ranger School, you feel like you can do anything, and I'm not sure that feeling ever subsides. Number 2, an appreciation for basic sustenance. We referred to Ranger School as the Life Appreciation Course. Ranger School teaches you what it is like to be cold, bedless, foodless, etc., with no concept of impending respite. And number 3, the realization that the anxiety is worse than the actual challenge. The worst thing for Nick was not knowing if he succeeded or failed, because they don't tell you until the end. So you can be doing everything right in your mind or in reality, but instead of having the comfort of your success, you still have the constant anxiety that you might actually be failing. I'm positive that was a big struggle for Daniel as well. What a burden to be in those kind of circumstances with no comfort that you're almost finished. And Nick says that sleep is not as essential as people think. In Ranger School, we learned that we could go days and sometimes weeks on no to a few minutes of sleep and still function. Nick says he assumes these things only apply to people that have passed Ranger School, because a lot of people quit because of lack of sleep, unhappiness, and discomfort. Derek, another friend of Daniel's and a West Point graduate, says that Ranger School's main purpose is to teach you how far you can actually push your body and to show soldiers that their minds can be stronger than their bodies. Derek remembers a briefing before Ranger School and a bar chart that went something like this: civilian day, basic training, infantry deployment, and the 4th bar, considerably higher than the previous, said Ranger School. And just slightly above the Ranger School bar, the last bar read death. The combination of sleep deprivation, 2,000 calories a day of food, and 4,000 calories a day of activity, cold, rain, snow, and stress, plus carrying between 60 and 80 pounds of gear, causes most guys to lose between 25 and 35 pounds in the 62 days. Derek recalls while heading back to the truck after 10 days out in the field, he heard the Ranger instructor yell, "Hey Ranger, keep up!" Derek was the last guy in line, still standing and holding his M249 and 60 pounds of gear, and he'd actually fallen asleep. He was 50 yards behind the rest of the group. The worst sleep deprivation Derek recalls was 45 minutes of sleep in a 72-hour time frame. We became so hungry, we would eat the pepper packets and Tabasco packets from our MREs that were laughably small. In case you don't know, an MRE is the meals ready to eat. That is the packaged food that the military uses when they're out in the field. Derek says the beauty of Ranger School is when you come out on the other end, nothing is ever uncomfortable again. You're never really hungry again. When you are put in charge of other infantrymen, some of who have been deployed and in firefights, you know there isn't an environment out there where you won't be able to operate. In the worst and most uncomfortable situations while deployed, you think to yourself, at least I'm not in Ranger School. It allows you to stop feeling sorry for yourself and to focus on the mission and figure out how to complete the mission and take care of your guys while you do it. Well, after hearing Nick and Derek's assessment of Ranger School, what I learned and what I think we can all learn is that sometimes in life, we just need to ranger up. Life isn't easy. Life knocks you down. But the important thing is to always get back up, to fight and to persist. No matter what we may be dealing with, no matter how difficult, at least we aren't in Ranger School. So back to Daniel's experience. He ended up recycling 2 phases. Therefore, what takes a guy that goes straight through 62 days to complete took Daniel the better part of 4 months to complete. But that was the essence of Daniel Hyde, his drive, his fighting spirit to keep going through whatever he had to. He did it. He got through it. And after I heard from Nick and Derek, I understand why Daniel never told me anything about it. Heck, he'd gotten really sick while he was deployed in Iraq, and he wouldn't call me for a couple of weeks because he sounded bad and he didn't want me to worry. Excuse me and thank you. It has been said that losing a child is the most difficult in comparison to losing other family members. Over the last 10 years, the 2 most common grief questions I've been asked are, how do you do it? And how are you so strong? Well, we do it because we were not given a choice. There is no other option. And we are strong because falling apart would have hurt and disappointed Daniel, and none of us were willing to disappoint him. So we figured out a way to navigate through life without his physical presence. We are still figuring it out. People grieve differently, and this is certainly true for the 3 of us, my husband, my daughter, and myself. We all miss Daniel more than I could possibly try to describe. Yet our approaches to getting to the place we're all in today have been very different. Turns out there is no right or wrong way when it comes to grief. You truly just have to figure it out for yourself and hope that the people around you can be patient while you do. The one thing the 3 of us have in common and continue to do is focus on the blessings, the gifts, the good and beautiful people who have come into our lives as a result of Daniel leaving, and the solid, amazing friends and family who knew and loved Daniel and continue to support us unconditionally. Many of those friends are sitting out here tonight, such a solid testament of your unconditional love and support. Perhaps one reason I may have appeared strong for a long time was my distraction and concern over our daughter, Andrea. When you see the picture of her kneeling with the little boy, that's Nico, who I'm going to tell you about. Andrea's Daniel's only sibling. They were extremely close, and she shut down for quite a while after Daniel died. She didn't speak his name for a long time. She didn't talk about him much. And if she did, she would always say, my brother, never Daniel. I knew she was grieving deeply, and I did not know how to help my now only child. When Daniel died, his sister was close to 22. She'd graduated from San Francisco State in liberal studies, but she decided she did not want to teach. So now what? She was frustrated, confused, shut down, and she vacillated for a few years. It was a very difficult and frustrating time, And during that time, I hovered over her, which I'm sure did not help. But I was worried something was going to happen to her too. This is probably pretty common after a parent loses a child. And as she approached 24, I became more and more fearful. Daniel died 40 days after his 24th birthday, thus the title of my book, 24 Years and 40 Days. Andrea doesn't know this. I never told her. And since she's 31 and thriving, she doesn't need to know. But I had counted out the days when she would be 24 and 41 days, and I prayed and worried until that day came and went. It was strange realizing that Andrea had outlived her older brother, and I often wonder how she was affected a couple months after turning 24. Daniel died an American hero, a patriot, and for this, much attention is given. I have friends who have lost children in other ways, and their children do not receive this type of recognition, yet their hearts are no less broken than ours. And from those friends that have lost children, I derive a great deal of strength, realizing I'm not alone in my grief. It's honestly one of my most powerful coping mechanisms, realizing I'm not alone. Do not regret growing older. It is a privilege denied to many. I try to live by this quote and earn Daniel's sacrifice on a daily basis by doing what he would want me to do, what he would want all of us to do, to live, and to notice our abundant blessings. Our daughter eventually landed in Southern California and answered an ad for a nanny. Not at all sure this is what she wanted to do, she needed to start making some money, so she went on the interview. Nico was a couple of months old, and Andrea and Nico were literally a match made in heaven. Nico grabbed Andrea's heart in a way no one else had been able to. He gave her purpose and her life new meaning. And as Andrea cared for this little boy every day, oh, I'm sorry, I did not want to do this, but this rips me up. As she cared for this little boy every day, we could see her changing and opening her heart again. Still broken for her brother, but better and functioning. I've told many people, I think Nico saved Andrea. And 21 months later, a feisty little brother came into this family. And although Andrea had to move on to a full-time job with benefits a couple years ago, she and we remain permanently attached to these two little boys who have changed all three of us immeasurably. Find joy, search for joy. Don't waste your life in sorrow, because life is short and there are no do-overs. Thanks to an organization we have become affiliated with called Legacies Alive, our family attended the Army-Navy game together in 2015. A loss for Army, and Andrea has attended every year since. Witnessing in person the first Army win over Navy in 14 years, and the two subsequent wins for Army. Go Army, beat Navy. Legacies Alive sponsors Gold Star families for this event each year. And just in case you're not familiar with the terminology, a Gold Star family is a family with an immediate family member serving in the military who is KIA or killed in action. Legacies Alive mission is to provide unwavering support to Gold Star families and to keep the legacy of every American hero alive. And because of these yearly reunions at the Army-Navy game, Andrea met Lauren, whose brother Chase was also killed in action, and bonding over the losses of their brothers in service to our country, Andrea and Lauren have become great friends and Gold Star sisters. A great comfort for both girls. Legacies Alive has changed the lives of many grieving individuals and families just like ours. Well, it took me over 3 years to complete the book. I was still working and coaching cheerleading, so I worked on it when I could. I found a publisher and began that process, and I told the publisher I wanted the book to be in print before 2013 was over, and we made that happen. You see, The number 13 is significant to our family. It was Daniel's high school football number, and his number and jersey were retired from the program at Downey High at a lovely ceremony on September 11th, 6 months after Daniel's death. His jersey now hangs framed in the Downey High School gymnasium, and the number 13 pops up in our lives quite often. Can you stand up and model your number 13? Ta-da! I just met this young man tonight. BTW, thank you. And whenever the number 13 pops up in our lives, we always consider it to be a little wave from Daniel. And just in case you haven't realized, today is March 13th. The fabulous blessings between 2013, when the book was published, to present day are almost unbelievable. First of all, Daniel's little sister is doing fabulously. In addition to working full-time, she started her own business with the opening of an Etsy shop. She hand embroiders hankies, which keeps her very busy and grants her a much-needed second income to be able to live in LA. We have added so many Army men and women as extended family members, and the connections we have made, each and every one, is a gift granted to us by Daniel's passing. And our family's greatest joy, 8 of them now, are the children whose parents have elected to name a child in remembrance of our Daniel. We knew about one while I was writing, so little Daniel Rubicava's name is in print in the book, and the story of his daddy's relationship to Daniel. And since little Daniel, 7 more. Caden Daniel Berry, Daniel Benjamin Bloat, Nicholas Hyde Truba, Jordan Daniel Theet, Owen Daniel Colwell, and Anakin Hyde Ten Fingers have been born into our lives. All little boys that will forever carry a part of Daniel and our family with them as they grow into men and can share with others the reason for the Daniel or Hyde in their name. How incredible is that? Daniel didn't have any children, but he has 8 namesakes now. Absolutely phenomenal. And I know that one of his namesakes, Mommy and Daddy, are in the back row, and they probably don't want me to introduce them, but Guy and Samith Ten Fingers are sitting back there. So I don't think anybody else would be here. So wouldn't you suspect that a year or 2 after Daniel was gone, we had probably heard from everybody that wanted to reach out and contact us. 2 years ago, so 8 years after Daniel died, I received a private message on Facebook at 6 p.m. on Mother's Day. It read, "Happy Mother's Day.